it's Yolandi from Good Night and Yunal from Good Night. Hello,
Hi.
Yunal. Thanks for
Hi,
joining us
Yolandi.
today. We are very excited because today we are talking about something that comes up all the time. This is what our videos are all about, all the topics that you guys ask us about. So if you have something specific you want to know, remember to ask us in the comment section so that we can make helpful videos like these. So today we are talking about something that one of our favorite topics, early morning wake-ups. And the
Yes.
reality is that it is something we talk about all the time, which shows our clients it's normal. All children go through phases of early morning wake-ups, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that can be frustrating, and parents don't always understand why, but it's perfectly normal at
And
certain times.
just really crappy this time of the year when it's cold and dark in the mornings.
Yes.
So first of all, let's talk about when is the most common kind of times when early mornings wake ups occur. There is kind of, for us, we know there's kind of signals when it happens most of the time. When would you say are these ages that it's more common to go through early morning wake up phases?
I think usually when children go through transitions, which means they drop a nap, something big happening like that, we tend to see early morning wake-ups around about, I want to say between 7 and 8 months, usually, when they go from 3 naps to suddenly 2 naps a day.
Yes.
That's a big transition. We often see early morning wake-ups. Then often again, I want to say around maybe 13, 14, 15 naps to 1 nap a day. And then usually the big one when they go from 1 nap a day to not napping at all, which is a big change. Then we often do see early morning wake-ups, which are perfectly normal, and they usually resolve within time.
Yeah. No, and I think that's the big thing is that when you do go through these phases, you need to understand that it's not something you're doing necessarily wrong. Your child is just adjusting to this new normal, and it takes a little bit of time for their bodies to get used to this, and it does manifest. But also what happens sometimes is that the early morning wake-ups happen. It might be a signal for you to go through these transitions. So especially if I find for the 2 naps to 1 nap, often it's a signal that it's time that you start making that transition to 1 nap. But it can take anywhere to go through these phases, anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks.
Yes.
Or maybe let's say 2 to 4 weeks, because it sometimes doesn't take that long. Maybe it just takes 2 weeks, but it can often take a little bit longer, especially with those big ones from 2 to 1 nap.
Yes.
What do parents need to do? Because often, especially if you're not used to it, your child is sleeping through and all of a sudden they start waking up early. I feel that parents go to is like giving the bottle again, starting to rock again, bringing back certain habits that they had
Yes.
before. That's obviously not the right thing to do, or it's not necessary to do. Let me rather say that. What should they be doing? What should you, because we say you should remain consistent, you should remain, but what is it that they should be doing then consistently?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, if I jump the gun a little, I always say, like, look at whether things changed. So look at making sure the room is still nice and dark, especially if you go from winter to summer month. I often get the call, we haven't changed anything, but suddenly my baby's waking up early. And it's just because your sleep hormone is light sensitive. So make sure the room is nice and dark, so the body still thinks that 5 o'clock is 2 o'clock at night, and the light doesn't play a role. Make sure there aren't any noises, bird sounds, mommy switching on the kettle early morning, or anything like that that wakes them up. And of course, temperature. Now that it's going from summer to winter, make sure that your baby's not waking up because of the room being too cold.
Sleeping bags are your friend. They
Safe
kind of
sleeping
remain
bags,
the
yes.
same temperature or help you to maintain the same temperature throughout the night.
Definitely. A very good long-term investment. So those are the basic things that I always look at first. But then, now if all of those things are in place and your baby was sleeping well or your toddler was sleeping well, then we say, like you said, remain consistent, which basically means try to not intervene if not needed. If you hear your baby's waking up and they are chatting or playing, then leave them completely. We try to keep them in the dark without stimulation, without a feed, without interaction until at least 6 o'clock. The reason for that is if your baby wakes up at 5 and you decide to just start the day and switch on the light and feed and play and all of that, that sets the body clock for waking up tomorrow again at that time. So you don't want to do that. You want to try and keep them in the dark, in their bed or in their cot, as long as you possibly can, hopefully until 6 o'clock, before then switching on the lights and showing the body, this is wake up
Good
time.
morning. Now it's morning. Great. So for me, also another thing that parents sometimes forget when they go through these transitions is that they do need to make certain adjustments, especially if you're going from a lot of naps. Obviously, you're always going from more naps to less naps. So as you are going from 3 naps to 2 naps, obviously your child needs to adjust to coping with less sleep. And a good thing to do during that time is to also adjust your bedtime a little bit to make up for the lost sleep during the day. And that is also something that parents sometimes, they just stick to that, like, kind of bedtime is a set time. And during those transition times, it might be helpful to adjust the bedtime to a little bit earlier. Not too early, but at least half an hour, maybe even an hour earlier to do it. Just to adjust to the changing. And then once you go through that transition, you can go back to your 7 o'clock bedtime. And because more often than not, that parents, when they have early morning wake-ups, their first instinct is to go to a later bedtime because they think that's parents, what they need to do.
I often find that parents, your logical thinking tells you if you put them down later, they're going to sleep later in the morning. So often when I suggest to parents, put your baby down earlier in the evening, their first question is, but isn't he going to wake up even earlier tomorrow morning? But the problem is that overtiredness, meaning you stretch your baby or your child too long at some point during the day or until bedtime, often causes the early morning wake up. So making sure when they drop from 3 naps a day to 2 naps a day, you can't stick to the same bedtime necessarily, because that will mean a very long stretch until bedtime, causing overtiredness, causing early morning wake up. So that's why we adjust the bedtime to compensate for the loss of that last nap.
Great. Thank you so much. I do think this is going to be super helpful for parents to know. And to also just remember and keep in mind that this is an absolutely normal phase where all babies and children go through these phases. Unfortunately, some go through all of them. But it is nothing you're necessarily doing wrong. You just need to give your little one that time to adjust to the changes that are happening naturally in their body, and not something necessarily that you're doing wrong. So thank you so much, for that, and for your time. Have a good day. Good night.
Bye.